Everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're here to talk Speak No Evil.
We're here to speak evil.
We're here to speak evil about Speak No Evil, starring James McAvoy, now in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And Hayden, a movie that we're probably both pleasantly surprised with. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think pleasantly surprised was an understatement for me. Like, I've been kind of dreading this for oh God.
You've been dragging this hard.
Yeah, real.
Prior.
And honestly, I feel like at this point, this trailer, I've seen this trailer for 5 months.
Yes.
I think I got this trailer for the first time before Civil War. So it's been
that seems right.
Almost half a year at this point. And I think the thing is, honestly, I think it's similar to a Fall Guys situation where I think the trailer for this movie was just really not good at all. Because this is a really hard movie, I think, to market without, kind of spoiling the suspense and the thriller nature of it.
Once you see it, if you give away what makes it unique, then
why
the trailer would just
it?
be Yeah,
exactly.
So I think it's a film that definitely worth seeing, and we'll talk high level here for a second, kind of spoiler free. This is a movie that's hard to stay away from spoilers a little bit, but it is a remake kind of a movie that is a Shudder exclusive or Shudder production from a couple years ago, which is also, I hear, very good. I was talking to people in the last couple of days saying I was going to come see this movie this weekend, and they were all like, "Have you seen the original?" And when I hear people ask that question, I think, "Oh, the original's from 1968 or from at least 1995 or something."
Right.
And
90s,
then I look and it's 2022 or something. It's but yeah, it's on
very
Shudder.
Fast turnaround time for sure.
Yeah, it's on the Shudder service, so check that out. But they say that's very good too, that the people I talked to. So anecdotal, but nobody said it was bad. So yeah, we've got a family spending time in Italy on vacation, husband, wife, and daughter, and they meet this rather bizarre family. Mostly bizarre with James McAvoy's character, Patty.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say it's almost just they're more eccentric, right? At the beginning is in that Italy trip, they're just a lot. They're party people, they're kind of crass and inappropriate, not afraid to, say things to there's this one moment where there's this couple that's also on the retreat that wants to hang out with them, and they ask them a really inappropriate, invasive question to get them to go away. So
which do you roll with, by the way? Are you the water or the folder?
I don't even. Honestly, it depends. It depends on what I ate before the.
Okay, fair enough.
Those who've seen the movie will know what we're talking about. Even so can infer with that.
Yeah. So, things ensue. They get invited to come. They're both from England, both families. Well, one are American family that moved to London.
Yeah, those are the ones we follow for the most part.
They go to visit James McAvoy's family out in the West Country in England, close to the coast, and
really remote kind of farmhouse
vibe. Bloody hilarity ensues over the next hour and a half. Yeah, there's a really cool story. It kind of unravels and you see, what's going on. I think the film did a pretty good job of, for me, having not seen the original, kind of keeping me guessing a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't
it's
see
a
the twist
masterclass
coming.
in tension. I didn't either. And it's really tense. There's a lot of suspense. And honestly dread, right? Because that something's afoot, because this is a horror movie. Obviously, the characters in the movie don't know they're in a horror movie. So they keep making these decisions that, are not correct or not in their best interest. And I think it really, really captures awkward tension in such a great way. And I think that's down to writing and performances of there's so many moments in this where they see red flags or they want to get out of there. They want to leave the family's house, but they want to the American family wants to leave James McAvoy and his family, right? But they keep they're almost too nice to admit that there's perceived danger or just whatever's making them uncomfortable.
Well, I think I think this film does a really good job of building tension in the way of like it just ramps up very, very incrementally
For sure.
throughout. The weird moments start out, like the creepy moments start out as almost awkward.
They do,
And they
for
get
sure.
explained away being awkward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while it gets more and more creepy and it's hard to explain it away as awkward anymore. And then it's too late.
Yeah.
So it does a really good job. And for a movie that's only like an hour and 45 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot happens and a lot's going on. And I feel like
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it feels longer, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I
I
think
don't
it's
either.
just it's the relationships and the dynamics are so dense. And I think like a lot of times in a horror movie or suspense movie or thriller, whatever you want to call it, right? Like the characters are really just there to like most of them are there to die, or and then you've got like your pretty obvious final girl, right? I'm wearing the stab scream merch right now. Like I feel like every time we go into a Scream movie, we know like most of these people are dead except for like whoever returns plus one or two, right?
Yep. Right.
So, and in this, like you really don't have any of those. You don't have any of those expectations, but I think you have. There's a lot of depth to these relationships, and there's a lot of like flaw in them too, right? Like there's moments of disagreement between like kind of our leading couple. They explore some of the backstory of how they got to where they are emotionally, and it explores this dynamic of like um when you like a person versus when you love a person in a committed relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're willing to do for them in spite of, you know, how they may be bothersome to you at
Yeah.
times.
And I think, on that note, this movie does a really good job of having exposition in a way that doesn't bring everything to a screeching halt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard sometimes. A lot of movies really struggle with that
Oh, for
now.
sure.
So,
Yeah, it's
mhm,
done in conversation every time in a way that's really natural. I think
yep.
it makes sense that you would have the conversation they're having, what they're having. Like, I don't really feel like there's ever a moment in there where they stop and they're like, well, don't you remember the time you hurt my feelings by doing this? Or we had this uncomfortable whatever, or our daughter did this. Like, I
Hmm.
think it's all natural, you know?
Yeah, it's like, do you remember when? And then you get the flashback, and all of that. So yeah, none of that here. It's done pretty well in a movie that's pretty fast paced. Even though we don't get into a lot of the violence until probably the last half hour, would you say? Is that about right? Maybe 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think like it like, again like it's a very slow burn,
Mhm.
right? It takes a while for that to happen, and because this is not a slasher. This is not a movie with like a crazy high kill count, right? Like this is about a family of three that is our protagonist, and another family of three that are a perceived threat.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so I think we'll tell you what we scored it, and then we'll get into some spoilers. So if
mhm.
you're watching this spoiler free and just want to know should you go see it or not, we scored it 7.5. We think it's a pretty
Yeah,
good film. It's fun,
hmm yeah,
and
I think it's a good, not great,
yep.
but I
So
really enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it. Had a great time with it, and would for sure recommend it. I don't necessarily think it's one I want to revisit much, or maybe ever, and we'll go into that later. But I do think definitely like it's really well crafted to have like an excellent, super tense, like edge of your seat first watch. And I think like if you're into suspense, if you're into that kind of thriller tension, this is one of the best movies to do it all year.
this is one of those rent don't buy, but not in a bad way.
Yeah,
It's a
for sure.
good one time watch. You're gonna have fun with it. You're probably not. It's not going to be an annual viewing, maybe, but
Right.
I think it's still something you're going to have a lot of fun with. So yeah, let's
For
get
sure.
spoiler territory now, and before we get into the twist, which is the backbone of the movie, really, in
Mm-hmm.
many ways, I think this movie does like a really interesting job of talking about almost like class warfare in a way that it doesn't even tell you it's doing it until the end. Um,
Yeah.
and it's you realize like when everything becomes very clear what's happening. James McAvoy, there's a really like impactful line I found where he's asked, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "Because you let us."
Right.
And then he kind of goes on the monologue of like, you know, when the evil villain tells you their whole motivation and plan, and he's like,
right.
He's like, you people with your, you know, you feel so good about yourself because you made friends with a family with a disabled kid, and you eat your, you know, your vegetarian stuff, and you want
drive your gasless car.
Yeah, and all of that. And it's just this hatred coming from him, and it's very well delivered by McAvoy.
Right. And it's this weird dynamic too, because like the protagonist family is not as well off, I would say, as James McAvoy and his family. Like, they're seemingly more financially secure and everything, but they live beneath their means, right? Like, luxury to them is not the big house and the expensive car. It's being able to have freedom to travel and to, you know, eat out and really have a life where you craft experiences rather than have things. And then our protagonist family is the exact opposite, where like they are struggling. The husband's been out of work for a while.
They're not struggling that much though, because when he forced them to transfer their whole bank account over, they had like $200,000.
200 pounds, yeah,
200,000 pounds. So they're doing okay.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Right, but you very much get the vibe that they are a formerly wealthy family that is really trying to hold on and keep on to appearances, even though, you know. It's like manufactured prestige.
There's a lot of uncertainty because both of them have kind of lost their status as professionally. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty there, and they are like very clearly living outside of probably the means that they should be at that point.
Right.
I can't imagine London's an incredibly, you know, affordable town to live in, and we see very briefly their home in the film, and it does not appear to be like a, you know, a home on a budget. So
true. Yeah.
So anyway, the twist is this. It turns out that McAvoy and his partner, because I don't think they're married, are they? Like, we don't know. Like, do we find out?
I can't imagine they're married because of
why, yeah. Which we'll get to.
The way she comes in his life, right?
Yeah, McAvoy and partner go on vacations in order to essentially recruit families to murder the parents and then take the child to replace the last child they took.
And that is honestly the scariest part to me, is that they're like, whenever the kid outlives their usefulness or whatever, or ages out of, you know, what they want to have, right? Because they want to have this like perfect, they want to have this perfect nuclear family because the woman in the relationship had like a really late miscarriage, or they lost a kid actually shortly after they were born, right?
Yep.
I think.
Right.
So ever since then, they've kind of felt this like hole in their family they're trying to fill by stealing,
assuming that story
kids is true. To be like the perfect obedient child.
Yeah. And that's assuming the story that they told there is true. They're exceptionally good at psychological manipulation. So, in order to keep the kid quiet, then they cut out their tongue.
And dude, that was the biggest oh my god moment to me.
So all this time where you're making fun of the whole, you know,
right? Because the way that the movies are marketed, they use this snip thing a lot, right? And I always kind of assumed it, in the way it's shown in the trailer, just like they're gonna kill you. And so the whole time I thought the twist was just like this. It's an evil murder family,
right?
And the twist ends up being that not only is the kid not theirs, but like the condition that he has is totally manufactured, and they essentially mutilated a child to like keep him from speaking out against the abuse he's enduring, which is horrifying.
So the child, Ant, played by Dan Hughes, is like desperately trying to communicate somehow to this family that, hey, you're about to, you know, be killed and then have your tongue cut out and taken, you know, whatever. He can't. I mean, he can't speak. So eventually, though, we end up down in like a basement inside of a barn that has like a lower level. And it's almost like a weird trophy room, Hayden, where there's all the collectibles from the families of the past.
Like people's backpacks and luggage.
Cell phones and all the stuff. Yeah.
Some underwear and stuff, which was kind of nasty.
Yep. And then you're starting to get like, okay, many family has been lured to this place. And then the photo album comes out and you start to see the McAvoy and his partner, Clara, with a different child every time.
Yeah. The miserable, vacation. It's always they're with like, it's always like a happy 2-family photo, right? And then like you get the, their kid always just looks like miserable.
Yeah.
And it's,
So from that point, which is about the end of Act 2-ish, from that point, like it gets pretty fast paced and the tension really gets high. There's a moment late to where McAvoy's like trying to force a door open that's very reminiscent of Jack Nicholson in The Shining.
The Shining, I thought the same exact thing, and I think that tribute was deliberate. And honestly, I think like what helps with the tension of this scene so much is that like this really is mostly a one location movie. Yeah. Right? So you spend so much of the film in these different rooms of the farmhouse. And I think you have a really good perception of space by the time you get to, the big finale, where essentially you have like the evil family and the protagonist family kind of doing this, like they're almost hunting each other throughout this house. And you have a very clear, I think, understanding of where people are in relation to each other. And I think that helps the tension a lot.
It absolutely does. So story-wise, I mean, that's about it, right? Like there's not... Oh, and the McAvoy's partner, and we alluded to that, is essentially a victim of the same thing, except she was kept as a partner.
Yeah, she was like the first person that he abducted, seemingly, and was... kind of groomed into having this romantic relationship with him, and then also kind of perpetuating the cycle of abuse. But the thing that's smart about that too is that the way that it's done and the way that she says it, like at this point, like there's so much of what that couple has said that's unreliable that I don't know what to like. I don't know in that moment whether or not to believe her. And I think by the end of the movie, you realize, like, okay, yeah, that's definitely what happened, because he tries to do it again with this family's kid.
They tip us off to the twist, too, at one point, and it just flew right by me. But as soon as we learned the truth, I was like, oh, they were basically telling us right there. When they're at the dinner, and you find, how long they've been together, and then she's like, so how old was she? And you just forget about it.
Yeah, and that was honestly like the weird, like that was one of the most tense scenes of the movies. They go out to this seafood restaurant that's like a really remote thing where it's like,
it's like a chef's house.
Yeah, a chef is like, come to my house and I will cook this meal for you with this like really like fresh catch stuff that he caught today, and like several course meal. It's like a whole thing.
And he's the guy who shows up at the end, right? Like
yes, to help. Yeah. Also, he's involved somehow. But like the scene you're talking about, they have this kind of a moment where it's like, they're being the happy couple and talking about how they're very sexually active and their relationship has all this passion and security,
which they show.
And they role playing, and they allude to the fact that like they might be swingers as well.
Yep.
And it's almost like a misdirect twist, because you're like, oh, is that what's off about this family? Is they're trying to like seduce or get our protagonists into this weird like, I don't know, polycule situation. Not that polycules are weird, but this one would have, not formed healthily.
Right.
And then, she's like, we've been together for 17 happy years. And you start doing the math on that. And you're like, the wife is like, so how old were they when they met? And he was like, her husband's like, oh, don't go there. And I feel like there's a lot of moments in this movie where like the woman is raising very valid concerns, because she's looking through things with the eyes of, I think unfortunately, a lot of women have kind of been trained in domestic situations to look for threats more than men do. And, as a woman, as a mother, she's kind of always looking out for things in this situation that are red flags, and her husband just keeps being dismissive of them, like over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think really what makes their relationship kind of boil over and come to the point.
Yep.
Kind of their climax, right, of their tension between the two of them.
Yeah. Before we move into characters, let's just go over story. We gave it 7.5 out of 10. It's well done. It moves along quickly, but it feels full for a movie that is less than 2 hours long. So,
yeah, absolutely,
pretty solidly done. Cast performances, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think the character work here is surprisingly good for a tension, thriller / horror film.
Yeah, I think it's definitely above average for the genre. Absolutely.
Yep. I think also at play there's some commentary on the whole alpha male beta male conversation of 2024.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
You see the alpha male lose in the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so exaggerated that it has to be intentional, right?
Oh, of course, right. And I think it's kind of a parody of that in a sense, right? Because James McAvoy is very masculine, very traditional, father figure, right? All about respect and not speaking when you're not spoken to, and just having very traditional views of what a woman and child's place is in a household.
Yep.
And I think on the inverse, the protagonist family with what are their names? Ben.
It's Ben, who's played by Scoot McNairy, and then
great name.
Yeah, Louise, played by Mackenzie Davis.
Yeah, and I think Ben and Louise honestly have the opposite dynamic, where I feel like Louise seems like she very much is the one who kind of plans in the relationship and has more, I guess, agency and more. I don't know. Like I think honestly, just like Ben is kind of a pushover. Like I think he seems like he's kind of desperate for this social connection and to be validated by other people. That he's kind of willing to ignore a lot of the red flags because he wants, even though he sees it, he doesn't want to believe it because he wants to have this relationship with this other family, which I think is honestly a struggle that a lot of people relate to. That like it's kind of once you're an adult and your job is very singular, especially if you're someone who works from home like we do most of the time, it can be very hard to make new connections.
It can. I think there's also an element of he is fascinated by and looks up to Patty.
Yes,
Patty has the confidence that Ben doesn't have. He has the assertiveness that Ben doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where Ben's asking his wife, please don't talk about how I never get laid, that type of thing.
Yeah. And it's sad, and it's kind of part of it is played a little humorously, but I do think there's also genuine sincerity in that, in how he feels insecure in the relationship. Yeah. And I think there's a physical dynamic to the way they cast that too, where I feel like he's kind of like a smaller, more mousy, lankier person. James McAvoy is larger than him, but also I think his wife is taller than him too. Pretty noticeably.
Yes, she is. Yep.
So I think that was kind of smart of playing of that kind of fragile masculinity. And I think that's one of the other things that they do as a twist really well for this genre, is that usually in this kind of movie, you would think it's about, the man learning to step up and provide for his family. Right. I think there's been a lot of, we've joked about it, especially in the gaming space, but in the last half decade, I feel like every movie is about either a man with a kid who doesn't have courage learning to find it to protect the kid, or a hard ass learning to love because of a child, right? Your Last of Us is your God of War is there's almost a dozen examples of this in popular media at this point. And I thought that was the direction they were going. And I think to have the wife really be the one who not just takes agency of the situation over the sense that she plans how their escape, but she kills
oh yeah,
a lot of the villains here.
he also has a moment where he kind of steps up and shows that courage, right? Dropping off, breaking his leg or twist whatever knee or whatever it was, right? When he fell off the roof in order to get the ladder back up. Like he has that moment, but you're right. Like it takes until that moment for him to have that one moment.
Yeah, and like even in the end, like I think a lot of movies have, because I think when you're doing a horror, a suspense, and thriller, it's so tense all the time that you want to have like a big relief, like hell yeah, feel good, audience cheers moment at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where the evil is saved, whatever. And you think that's going to happen where Ben goes up to James McAvoy, who's like on the ground, borderline like unconscious, definitely incapacitated at this point, right? Points the gun to him to kill him, and he can't do it, and he walks off. And I think like that's what's I think that's the most interesting choice to me in this movie, is that I think his arc, Ben's arc, is kind of incomplete because he still is not able to, because obviously the threat to his family is eliminated, but at that point, like who's to say James McAvoy doesn't, recover, rehabilitate himself? He's a doctor after all.
Drive out to London,
Either drive out to London or just does this again for decades to other families, right?
It's interesting to me that, and before I say that, I'm not even convinced that Ben and Louise, like as a relationship,
are going to make it.
Yeah, I don't know that they will. I don't think that's resolved. It's nowhere near.
No.
I
would like a sequel to this movie, honestly, because there's so much to explore, I think, with the characters still.
But I think what's really interesting, too, is that when it comes to defeating Patty, James McAvoy's character, who is the primary antagonist in this film, it's the kids who defeat him. The daughter, Agnes, is the one who injects him with the, sedative.
The ketamine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the boy who had his tongue cut out, like before the movie began, is the one who takes a brick to McAvoy's face, like repeatedly.
Yeah. And that moment is also very, very Last of Us, right? Where he like kneels on top of him, picks up the brick, and Patty, James McAvoy's last line in the movie, he's like, "That's me, boy," or some shit like that. And it's just like, oh my God. It's visceral. Like it's very intense. It's very violent. It's, I think, the most shocking moment of the movie. And it's not like a feel-good ending. Because obviously the threat is eliminated. Well, I say obviously, we'll start with that in a minute. But the threat is eliminated, at least for the time being, right? And you kind of end the movie on like him in the rear view mirror. You just realize that like I think at this point, like, even though, and horror movies done a really good job of exploring this lately. I mean, you sold me on the new Halloween trilogy, and they do a good job of this too, of exploring that. Like, even though you explore or you evade, you get out of the initial threat, like the psychological impact that has on you, like you might never feel safe again. You might not ever be able to lead a normal life again. And I definitely feel that way about the child in this movie, which I think is his name, Ant and Clara. Yeah. And Clara. I think the two of them definitely seem, really affected and changed by what they've had to do.
Well, and I think very subtly, whether it's intentional or not, one of the things I took away is like this film shows like the ridiculousness of adults and the lack of adults standing up or whatever, and it's the kids who end up getting hurt and having long-term consequences as a result, right? The younger generations for the irresponsibility and just bad actions of older generations, right? Whether that's intentional or not, it feels like it might be very subtly, but
I think it is. I mean, I think honestly, part of it, I think that might honestly be the theme of the film.
Yeah.
Especially because there's that old poem that James McAvoy's character recites, like very awkwardly for like an entire minute, about how your parents mess you up, and the only way to break the cycle is by not having children yourself.
Yep. And if it is the central core, and then I applaud the film because it does it in a really subtle way that doesn't. I hate when you get like absolutely just pummeled over the head. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Because it's disrespectful of the audience to think that we can't figure it out,
Yeah.
So
for sure. I mean,
this is subtle enough that I feel like it's more impactful.
Yes.
Actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I had a professor in school who said that she thought if you're writing a really effective script, like with your themes, with your callbacks, your little subtle kind of Easter egg things, what you're going for ultimately is that if someone catches that, it's additive to the experience, but if they don't catch it, it doesn't detract from it.
Yep.
And I think this movie walks that line really, really well.
I do too, because if you don't catch on to that or you don't take that away from it, you're still gonna have a fun time with a good thriller. So characters, we gave an 8 out of 10. Pretty solid across the board. Good character development, and I know it's a remake, so it's not like an original story, but there's some tweaking here and all of that, and I think the performances across the board are pretty good. So look, sound, and feeling, we just to spoil here, we gave 7 out of 10, but tell me your thoughts on that.
So I think it was really well done and well shot, and I think the set design especially was really, really well done. Like just as far as this house looks lived in, and like I said earlier, I think you have a really good understanding of the physical space of this movie. You understand the layout of their home, how big it is, how far away the threats can be to you at any time, and also how remote where they are is. When you think about the scene where they show Patty driving a little too aggressively for a little too long when they go out for dinner the one night. I just think the thing is, like, I think everything here is like well done, but really not like remarkable in any way. And that's why I think a 7 out of 10 score is appropriate for look, sound, and feel. Like, I think everything was serviceable, honestly invisible at times, right? Nothing stood out. But that being said, like, there's not really any specific moments, frames, or shots that I think are going to really stick with me. I mean, I'm honestly having a hard time now, just a couple of days after watching the movie, conjuring up a lot of specific imagery here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think some franchises like, Alien, we had a new Alien movie this year, or others like in Alien, the ship is a character in the film, sometimes the most important one.
Yes.
And the look and feel of those films is really important. Here, not so much, I don't think. I think this is a film that's carried by its characters and just by the tension that's built through dialogue, and I think it does a really good job of that. So
and I think this story could really take place anywhere. Like, I don't think the setting is that important to it. So
agree.
Like I said, serviceable but not
serviceable.
So
intangibles, we kind of hit on rewatchability. I agree with you. I don't think it's a like I'm gonna watch this like again and again and again. But I had a good time with it, and it does, when you talk about like movies that are better than you thought they would be, this is near the top of the list in 2024. What do you think?
I think it is. I think it's number one. I think from as far as what my expectations were at to what we got, like, I was pretty impressed because I talked to my partner after the movie because they've seen pretty much everything we watched for review with me, and they were like, so I've seen this trailer also 10 or 20 times before other movies, right? And got it on ads. Like, I mean, this has got to be one of the most marketed movies ever. Like, they were sending me screenshots of, like, they were getting it at work on their computers. They were getting it, like, on Pinterest. Like, just this trailer's been everywhere. And they were like, that movie should have been a 2. Like, a 2 out of 10. And I think this is one of those movies that is, like, so greater than the sum of its parts because I think just everything is so well thought out and executed, and it's, I don't know, I think it's smarter than it presents itself as, and maybe than it needs to be honest. Like, I think this could have just been like, a fairly paint by numbers, fairly predictable survival thriller, and we would have come out of here and said, yeah, it's a 5.5 or it's a 6, like, it was all right, but kind of disposable.
For me, in horror, this movie is a fantastic example in the horror genre of less is more.
Yep.
And I think a lot of horror films really, really have a hard time with that. Grasping that.
Sure.
especially in the big franchises, as you get further along into the sequels of them, right?
Yeah,
They have to be bigger and more and all that. And like the Scream, like when it had, the best thing for the Scream franchise was that it had that like 10-year gap where it could almost reset.
I mean, it did. I mean, the movie was called Scream.
Right.
You know,
but I mean,
Halloween
even
did the
its
same
tone,
thing.
and it didn't feel the need to like one up everything. By the time like Friday the 13th, I mean, dude, there's a movie where Jason goes to space. Like, come on. It's, it just gets more and more and more over the top to the point where it's like, okay, this looks nothing like the original of what it was. And it's so far away from what made the original fun and long and made this franchise have life. This movie gets it in terms of just relying on basic tension and characters that are compelling and leaving just enough out there that we don't know that there's this constant feeling of what's really happening here.
For sure.
It gets it. And I really applaud it for that. That's my favorite part of the intangibles of this movie.
Yes. Yep.
So really well done there. But overall, like, I wouldn't say all the extra stuff is like mind blowing, and the rest of it, fine,
right?
Yeah,
I mean, like, I don't think like the movie was good, but there's nothing like for me to give a high score on an intangibles. We gave it, I think, a 9 out of 15, right? Or what was our combined?
6.5 out of 10 is what we basically did. Yeah,
right. And I think for me, like, for a movie to get really high on intangibles, there has to be something about it that's like iconic or really memorable, or I want to go and interact with this world or these characters or experience this more in some way, right? And I don't see, like, I don't know, like, I don't see Speak No Evil becoming like, I don't think next year we're gonna have like a bunch of like a little Speak No Evil end cap in Spirit Halloween. I don't see them coming to Universal Horror Nights or anything. But the thing I do want to ask you is, do you think we'll get a sequel to this? Part 2 of that question: do you want one?
I don't think we need one. That's never stopped him before, right? But
no.
No, I kind of don't.
Okay.
And I don't know that you can capture what made this movie great. Mostly because, like, to me, McAvoy makes this movie go. And, he's not going to be there. So, well, maybe he survived. I don't know. But
that's
the new Jason Voorhees.
I feel like they left it kind of open-ended of where they're going to go next. Right? They left that area, but I think there's more that can happen. And, like, I don't know, like, I'm like, at this point, like, I don't believe someone's dead in anything, especially a horror movie, unless I see like an absolutely like mutilated, unsurvivable injury. And not to get like graphic, but like when they showed him after the kid beat up with the brick, I was like, I could see Hollywood finding a way for him to survive.
Oh, for sure. Hayden, I learned that lesson. The movie Halloween H2O from 1997. Michael Myers has his head cut off on screen at the end.
Hell yeah.
And there are 5 Halloween movies after that.
In that continuity, though, or is it like one of the
there's one after it in that continuity. That has Michael Myers as the primary villain. So there you go.
That franchise is bad shit.
So yeah. But Halloween's great because there's like 4 different timelines within the franchise. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, we, again, 7.5 out of 10 for Speak No Evil. And it's a good time. Go. Yeah. It's not mind-blowing. What's the last movie we reviewed that we really liked?
Probably Alien, right?
Yeah. What was the last one we did? What's the last review we did?
Last week?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I think we liked it, which sucks because, like, clearly it's not very memorable.
Yeah, it's just so hard to, because these they all start to bleed together.
They do. But now,
let me check.
I'm determined. So
it was Beetlejuice. It was Beetlejuice.
Yeah, we like Beetlejuice. We gave Beetlejuice high intangibles, I think, right? Because
yes.
It just has that fun factor, and it actually does, once you get through that first act, have a lot of rewatchability to it.
Yeah.
It's
Beetlejuice. It's got the iconography.
Yeah.
Right. And that's I do like that we've finally reached a point where I think we have a really good balance of one-off smaller, usually more contained. A lot of times, like your indie A24 or Neon horror movies, and then your big franchises.
I want to talk about
can and
that.
should coexist.
Yeah, I know you're heading off to sunnier weather here for a week, and you won't be on the like Strange Awesome show this week, but I do in the future want to talk about how I feel like we're getting a really, really good mix in theaters right now of big blockbusters balanced against movies that aren't that and are actually really solid.
Have room to be successful. Like I think
the trailers
Longlegs did so much better than anyone thought it would.
Yeah, some of the trailers I saw today just really had me excited to see movies that I never even knew existed prior to, a few months ago.
Oh yeah.
So
October's going to be a banger month, dude.
Yeah.
I don't.
But there's a movie coming out.
Be able to cover everything in video form, unfortunately. But definitely check out our site, strangeawesomegames.com.
Yeah.
We'll have
on the horror front. There's a lot coming, and
I know.
So we've got that Hugh Grant movie. Just looks really freaking fascinating to me.
I think it's an A24, right?
Is A24
kind of like religious?
Yeah.
What is that movie called? I know we're talking about it so many times. Heretic. Okay.
And then on the non-horror front, there is a movie coming out Christmas Day, and I forget the title of it. I just saw the trailer for the very first time today. That is about it's true story or based on, but a boxer from Flint, Michigan, female boxer who went to the Olympics, won, and it's just like the life story, and it looks so freaking good, and I'm looking forward. It is total Oscar bait. It's a Christmas Day movie, come on, we're getting it's Oscar time, but
so is Nosferatu. Nosferatu is a Christmas Day movie.
It when you think Christmas, think of that. Take the family.
I'm gonna straight up, dude. Christmas Eve matinee. That is the best time to watch a movie all year. 4 p.m. on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So anyway, 7.5 out of 10. Speak no evil. Go see it. It's fun time. We'll be back next week with what do we have next week? What are we doing?
Transformers 1, I think.
Oh yeah, Transformers 1. That's right.
It's got really good reviews.
Yes, and it should be fun. And the trailers have looked fun. And then the week after, we are up with Megalopolis. Is that right?
And then Joker the week after that. Dude, it's stacked. It honestly at this point, it's from here through mid-November. It's kind of a banger every week.
Yeah, and it's more compelling to me, the schedule, than even during the summer months, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in what's coming,
Yeah, there's not really a single movie in the next 6 weeks that I feel like I'll be dragging my feet to go see.
Yeah.
And there were a couple this summer. There were 3 in August, honestly.
And we weren't wrong. We weren't pleasantly surprised as we were today. So anyway, 7.5 out of 10. Let us know what you thought of the movie in comments. It is a good time, though. You should go see it. And we'll see you soon with another review next week. Transformers 1 and more to come after that. Bye, everybody.
Take care, y'all.